College Football Now here on Any Given Thursday is presented by Manscaped. I am Harrison Graham. He is Chase Sr. If you want to get 20% off the best men's grooming products out there, like Ed Orgeron at LSU, you know he's rolling with Manscaped. The real ones know. 20% off at manscaped.com/chat. Those blondies are well aware of Ed Orgeron going to Manscaped. In all seriousness, let's talk Eddie O and LSU, Chase. Ed Orgeron and LSU coming to an agreement that they will agree to part ways after this season. The LSU AD Scott Woodward says the coaching search is underway for 2022, and now you got two of maybe the 10 or at least 15 best coaching jobs in the country available in USC and now, of course, LSU. And last week, Chase, we did a candidate's replacement video for Ed Orgeron because he was on the hot seat. Well, now the seat is just evaporated because he is no longer going to be the head coach. They're going to let him finish out this year because, you know, they're doing right by him. He won a national title a couple of years ago, but they will be hiring a new head coach for next season.
What a fast fall for Ed Orgeron. 2019, he coaches and leads one of the most talented college football teams we've ever seen on a brutal schedule in which they go undefeated. They have Joe Burrow win the Heisman Trophy. That goes down as one of the most elite, if not the most elite college football teams of all time.
Yes.
And a couple of short years later, he's out at LSU, and it's crazy how everything has transpired over time because this is a classic example of a guy who reached the peak of his profession. He won the ultimate prize, which is a national championship, and it seems like, according to some of the reports coming out all week, that he won the Natty, and he was like, you know what, I'm all good. I'm out. I'm dipping. He didn't even really thoroughly interview some of the candidates that he hired to take place of Dave Aranda as well as Joe Brady, which is really, really weird. He decided to divorce his wife shortly after winning the national championship, then was bringing random women and their kids to the LSU practices and letting them partake in drills, and now he's going to get his whole buyout from LSU. So Eddie O going to be sitting pretty, and you know what I think his next move is, Harrison? Media, because there are a lot of media companies who are going to pay him big time bucks, but the big question remains, who is LSU going to pay big bucks to replace Eddie O? Crazy downfall.
If you're watching Coach O, hit us up in the DMs at HGrahamNFL, at Chase_Senior. Great personality, but yeah, he got a little loose with how he was running that program after winning that national title. But hey, he's got 17 million reasons to feel just fine. Who should be the next coach at LSU? We'll make this the pinned comment on today's video, so go ahead and scroll on down and get your votes in on who you think will replace Ed Orgeron. All right, I had to include Dabo Swinney at number 10. Of course, the head coach at Clemson, Chase, and naturally he was asked about this, right? All high-profile coaches are being asked, oh, what about LSU? What about this? What about that? Let's just get to the quote, and then we'll kind of react to this here. I'm a big-time coach. Wow. I made a big-time list. Wow. Yeah, this is the only Death Valley I'm concerned about right here. That's for sure. So Dabo shooting this down pretty strongly, but if I have learned anything over the years in watching college football, covering this sport, and just really being tapped into everything that's going on, never fully believe coaches, especially high-profile ones. Would I bet on Dabo Swinney to go take that job? No. But if LSU calls and is like, we'll give you a 10-year, $100 million fully guaranteed contract and you can do whatever you want with your coaching staff, you don't think he's at least listening to that?
Have to.
Especially with the type of year Clemson is having. If he's ever going to leave, this might be the time. Again, I'm not predicting it. I don't think it's going to happen, but you can't rule it out. You can never rule it out with these coaches because money always talks.
And there are countless examples of why you can't trust coaches when it comes to these openings and them denying it, because so many times and so often they end up leaving those aforementioned gigs for that new opportunity. And I always kind of crack up at how fan bases rip apart coaching candidates for leaving for a better job, because at the end of the day, it is a job, and we as humans are always intrigued by promotions. You might be happy in your current job right now and really be flourishing within that job title thanks to a great employer, but if another company comes along and says, Chase, we're going to double your salary, you're going to have an opportunity to have even more success, you're going to be in a hotbed recruiting state in the state of Louisiana where you can pluck all of these players from all over the place and compete with the likes of Alabama, your alma mater, come on over to LSU into the real Death Valley and start winning these national championships on a more consistent basis and leave Clemson now that it's down in the dumps and take over for Eddie O, be an all-time hero, an all-time legend, and have a better job, make more money with a better opportunity at hand.
The point we're making is you can't ever rule it out with
Don't
these
ever
guys.
trust
I've
coaches.
seen it too many times. So Dabo's at number 10, but hey, things could change over the next couple of weeks. All right, at number 9, Dave Aranda. Listen, he ran Ed Orgeron's defense, and let's be honest. Once he left for Baylor, that defense became not just one of the worst in the SEC.
Bo Pelini hire was brutal.
One of the worst in the Power 5.
Yes.
I mean, they beat Florida last week. They also gave up 42 points. I
Yeah.
mean, this defense has been a joke the past 2 years at LSU. Dave Aranda's a good defensive mind. I think he could get a good OC in there. And what he's doing at Baylor is pretty damn impressive. The first year at Baylor after Matt Rule left, kind of a transition year. Things didn't go that well. But in year 2, he's got them in the top 25. They're in the mix to get to the Big 12 championship game. And if he goes 8-4, 9-3 in his second year at Baylor, that's pretty damn impressive stuff. And I wouldn't have him super high on my list, but he's certainly a candidate worth considering because he has connections to the program, just being a part of that national title staff in 2019. Luke Fickell at number 8, Chase. I think we're in agreement.
He's going to be in the mix for all these openings.
And I think we're in agreement USC makes more sense because of the AD connection, but if you're not at least getting in touch with Luke Fickell as a major college football, not a franchise, but university, to at least interview the guy, I think you're making a mistake. I think Cincinnati has a really good chance of making the college football playoff this year.
Yeah, there's that Luke Fickell-Mike Bone relationship because Mike Bone, now the AD at USC, did hire Luke Fickell at Cincinnati. And I don't think we're like prisoners of the moment now because this Cincinnati run has been going on for a little while
not a fluke
here.
At this point.
It's not a fluke. This team is legit. They play excellent defense, which I think could bode well for LSU, especially considering how bad they've been defensively over the last couple of years. And Luke Fickell has shown the ability to, one, target recruits, but almost most importantly, develop players over time. And if you can get a guy like that in the head coaching position at LSU who can recruit in a state that is littered with a bunch of great recruiters, but also develop talent, which is what Ed Orgeron's staff has not done the last couple of years, that's a win-win proposition.
Yeah, and hey, you want a not-so-hot take? If Cincinnati was already in the Big 12 this year, they might win the conference. Now, Oklahoma with Caleb Williams is damn good, but Cincinnati at worst would be the second best team in the Big 12 this
I think
year.
they should be in the college football playoff if they finish the year undefeated.
They definitely have a very good argument. Manscaped, hey, there's no doubt it's the best men's grooming products on the market. We joked, but let's be honest. Ed Orgeron
How do you think Eddie O is dating ladies half his age?
Part of it's that accent. The other part, he's going to Manscaped. Let's be honest. Get 20% off the Lawnmower 4.0 at manscaped.com/chat. Man, I love going to Manscaped. Joe Burrow told me about this product, and man, whoa, got that Lawnmower 4.0. Go Tigers. National Championship. Roll Tide. Fuck you, Roll Tide. Manscaped.com/chat. Get 20% off plus free shipping. They've got all kinds of men's grooming products, but hey, this is going to keep your balls area nice and clean, nice and tidy. And hey, if you're like Coach O and you're a single man out there, going to be getting all the ladies if you head over to Manscaped. All right, Oregon. Mario Cristobal at number 7. Bruce Feldman released a list, and he's typically pretty tied into this stuff, Chase. He had Cristobal on his list. He's done really well at Oregon. I think USC makes more sense.
So do I.
But I think he's worthy of at least interviewing. I got him at number 7.
With the job that he's done at Oregon, of course he's worth an interview. I just think Mario Cristobal makes more sense for the USC gig because he has connections in that Los Angeles area. One of the big reasons that Oregon has become a powerhouse again, because they weren't after Chip Kelly under Mario Cristobal, he's gone into the Los Angeles area and he's been able to steal a lot of recruits from the USC stomping ground. So that's one thing that Mario Cristobal has working in his advantage. I just don't know how he would play in Death Valley, in Louisiana, opposite recruiting area, going to LSU. I think he makes a lot more sense to USC than he does for LSU.
Joe Brady at number 6, I would have him higher, but there's really been no buzz around him for LSU, which surprises me, but it tells me one of two things. One, they want to go away from the 2019 staff. They want to go in a new direction. Or two, they're being told that Brady's staying in the NFL. Yeah. And that's very much a possibility.
I think he will, yeah.
Joe Brady will probably have some opportunities to be an NFL head coach, if not in this cycle, in the very near future. And maybe him and his agent basically said, hey, thanks but no thanks. We're going to stick in the NFL, worry about running the Panthers offense, and then hopefully getting a head coaching job up here. And that very may well be the case. But if you don't at least call him, you're not doing your job. It's possible that's already happened. It's possible that they've already reached out and he's passed the word that he's not interested in the LSU opening at this time. But I've got him at number 6 because the work he did with that offense in 2019 and with Joe Burrow is one of the most transcendent, performances we've ever seen. I mean, he took a fringe draft quarterback and made him the number 1 pick. Mm-hmm. That's some of the finer coaching work we've ever seen, especially in the last 20 years. Who's the better option? Because these were the 2 coordinators. Joe Brady was technically the passing game coordinator, but he made all the difference. Dave Aranda, Joe Brady on that 2019 LSU staff. Who would you rather target? Type JB for Joe Brady, type DA for Dave Aranda. I think in modern college football, I'm going offense in most cases, so I would type my JB, but 2 worthy candidates. Go ahead and get your votes in. All right, we'll get into the top 5 here. Mark Stoops, a name that Feldman mentioned as well. We had him a little lower last week. I know they lost to Georgia last week, but what he's doing with Kentucky, Chase, has been impressive, and I think you would agree. We watched most of that game. He had them fighting and scrapping and hanging around against a just more talented team for about 3 quarters. Then, of course, Georgia pulled away.
Yeah, you and I were watching that game in Norman, Oklahoma, right before we saw Caleb Williams just go off against your alma mater in TCU. Caleb Williams, a stud, great time watching Oklahoma football. But something that you and I were discussing as we were watching that game, there was such a wide difference between what Arkansas looked like against Georgia and what Kentucky looked like against Georgia. And I thought that was pretty telling. They were so much more competitive. They seemed to have a much clearer plan against Georgia. And Georgia's been a buzzsaw this year. Everybody's been getting annihilated by them. But for Kentucky to go step for step for them and also beat Florida earlier this year, I like what Mark Stoops is doing at Kentucky. I just don't know if he has the recruiting pool that some of these other guys do.
Now, he's never been at a power program, so is that part of that?
Yeah.
Maybe. We know he can develop.
Sometimes you just got to stick with where you're at.
He can develop players.
Yeah.
I mean, he's turned 3 stars into NFL guys for several years now, but that is a different animal at LSU. We'll get into the top 4 in just a second, but make sure you guys are hitting that subscribe button. The first batch of college football playoff rankings come out here in 2 or 3 weeks, so that'll be fascinating.
Yep.
We will cover that. And, of course, as more jobs open up, we will continue to break that down as well. YouTube.com/ChatSportsTV. More college football videos if you guys subscribe. Okay, Jimbo Fisher at number 4. I kind of struggle where to put him right now because, I'm happy at A&M. I've got ranches down here. I'm not leaving. Again, it goes back to the Dabo thing. That's very similar to what he said at Florida State. And then Texas A&M is like, hey, how about 10 years and $75 million fully guaranteed? And by the way, after year 3, when you go to a New Year's Six Bowl, we'll give you a raise up to $9 million a year. Yeah, LSU, if they come in here and offer him more than Nick Saban is making at Alabama, you're telling me he's not listening? You're telling me he's not going to reevaluate his situation? Now, it's a tricky time if you're LSU to try to get Jimbo. They're coming off a great season. He just beat A&M this year, or he just beat Alabama this year as well.
Calzada going
with
off.
Zach Calzada, who wasn't even his projected starter. So I do think he's kind of got it rolling at Texas A&M, but dude, LSU's a better job. If they're like, we'll give you $100 million guaranteed, you're telling me he ain't interested? I just refuse to believe what he says. Now, he might believe it in the moment, but he hasn't talked to LSU directly yet. Things can change very quickly.
Yeah, no question about that. I think Jimbo is going to stay put in College Station because he has that program rolling with some momentum. I mean, last year they lose 1 game, and it was to Alabama. The next year they come back, they beat Alabama. So I think it's wise for Jimbo to stay put. But again, as we mentioned off the top, Harrison, you can never trust college coaches. Can't do it.
Speaking of these 2, because I think these are 2 of the top 5 or 10 coaches in the country, who's the better one? Type JF for Jimbo Fisher, type DS for Dabo Swinney. 2 of only, I think, 4 or 5 active coaches with the national championship. Get your votes in down in the comments, JF or DS. Okay, top 3. James Franklin, Penn State. Colin Cowherd said on Wednesday that he believes Franklin wants the USC job, so it could come down to staying at Penn State or going out to Southern Cal, but Feldman mentioned Franklin for the LSU job as well. He's certainly going to be in the mix there. I think LSU is a better job than USC overall, so I've got him at number 3.
We keep going back to this, but two of the most important qualities in a college head coach that's at a high level is recruiting. James Franklin's doing that. He has the number 1 recruiting class in the class of 22, and developing players. And maybe there aren't many coaches out there better than James Franklin of developing talent at the college level than him. The last several years, they've been producing a lot of high-level professional talent. Now, what you have to keep an eye on here with James Franklin, he's making $8.5 million at Penn State. That's a lot of money. LSU can offer more than that. But if Penn State goes on to defeat Ohio State on Halloween weekend, they defeat Michigan, and they really run the table here, make it into the Big Ten championship game, and maybe even make it into the college football playoff, that's when these rumors, I think, will start to pick up more momentum, because if James Franklin gets Penn State in the college football playoff, you look at it in two ways. You got to stay at Penn State because of how many strides and how much progress you made with that program.
There and you're going to leave.
Yeah, you finally get there, you're going to leave now, or he uses that as leverage to then land that job at LSU, which is probably one of the top 3 to 5 openings in college football.
Or he gets a raise out of it, one of the two. Okay, top 2. Lane Kiffin, number 2. I know this is your guy, Chase. You can't help but respect the way he's been able to reshape his image over the past 3 or 4 years. He humbles himself, goes and runs the offense at Alabama under Nick Saban. He humbles himself even more by taking the Florida Atlantic job and winning 10 games twice in 3 seasons. That program was dead, and now he's got it cooking at Ole Miss. I mean, they're 5-6-1 or whatever this year, 5-1, 6-1. Just came off an emotional win at Tennessee. I thought he handled that all very professionally for the most part, by the way. He could have really reacted differently with getting golf balls thrown at him. He goes in there, beats them. He's beaten Arkansas this year. The only team he's lost to is Alabama, and quite frankly, I don't mind your take that you think that they should go ahead and just hire Lane Kiffin.
I'm all in on Lane Kiffin if I'm LSU. I love him as a play caller, how he blends spread concepts with physical football. I love how he's repaired his image over time. This guy's an offensive mastermind. He's shown the ability to recruit as well. He also has really good hands, catching water bottles, dodging golf balls at Tennessee, at Rocky Top. And I just love what Lane Kiffin brings to the table. He's a big name. He garners a lot of attention. He kind of generates a lot of hype, and I think LSU could really use a guy like Lane Kiffin. Now, I don't know if he wants to be a guy who is just jumping all around the SEC and taking all of these jobs after a couple of years, but again, there might not be a better couple of jobs than LSU and a handful of others out there, so it's definitely a better gig than in Ole Miss.
And he's a QB whisperer. I mean, what he's done with Matt Corral
unbelievable.
It's been incredible. I mean, that guy's probably going to be a first-round pick now, and he's going to be in New York for the Heisman ceremony as well. Our new number 1, who wasn't even on our radars last week, but Bruce Feldman's reporting it, Cal heard, Joel Klatt, they've heard all the same chatter. Mel Tucker appears to be the focal point of this search, at least at this point, according to numerous reports. The head coach at Michigan State, his rise has been so fast, it's kind of unbelievable. He was on the 2018 Georgia staff. He takes the Colorado job, and although they only went 5-7, the attitude and physicality he brought to that program overnight was pretty tremendous. And then after kind of a bizarre exit in which he says he's staying, but then Michigan State offers more money, so he goes, which that wasn't handled perfectly by him. But he's got Michigan State undefeated and in the top 10 within 2 years. Mark D'Antonio left that program in a pretty bad place, and now he's got them in the mix to win the Big Ten and maybe even go to the college football playoff. They've got a tough schedule ahead of them, but Mel Tucker brings intensity, he brings passion, he brings physicality. He is a no-nonsense type of coach, whereas, let's be honest, Ed Orgeron has let a lot of nonsense happen over the past 2 years here at Chase. Mel Tucker is a true grinder. He's not going to deal with BS, and maybe that's the type of coach they like, and he's got those SEC roots being at Georgia for several years, just a few years ago.
You make very good points, and maybe you can make the argument that Mel Tucker is inexperienced as a head coach. Yeah, maybe you're right there, but his resume, fantastic. assistant coach and coordinator. He's been a part of 2 national championships. He played at Wisconsin, but also he's coached multiple different positions across the defensive side of the football at elite programs, Michigan State, LSU, Ohio State. He was in the pro ranks with the Cleveland Browns, the Jacksonville Jaguars, the Chicago Bears. He was at Alabama, Georgia, Colorado, now Michigan State. That resume is stacked.
I want to mention one more thing as well. LSU hired Nick Saban from Michigan State about 25 years ago.
Yep.
They've done this before. That connection is there. Who's to say they wouldn't do it again? So a lot of big names in the mix, and hey, it's LSU. What would you expect? Should they hire Mel Tucker? Type Y for yes, type N for no. Get your votes in down in the comments.